garlic knots.
All right, so let's take 300 grams of warm water, 95 to 100 degrees, 15 grams of active dry yeast, pour the yeast into the water, and stir it up really good. You want to make sure that it's thoroughly mixed together. And once you do that, set that to the side and let that sit for about 10 minutes. When the 10 minutes is close to being up, go ahead and grab a mixing bowl and a spatula. Pour in 525 grams of all-purpose flour, 45 grams of sugar, 12 grams of salt, and 1 egg yolk. We don't want the egg whites for this. 35 grams of unsalted butter. Make sure it's softened. And then finally add the yeast mixture to that bowl. Now, we're going to stir that with our spatula until it's fully integrated. And once it's fully integrated together, we're going to dump out the dough and start kneading it. If you're not able to knead this dough and you have a stand mixer, you can definitely use a stand mixer for this. I personally love to knead dough. It's a great stress relief. Think about the things that made you stressed out or made you upset and just put some work into that dough. Once it's done, go ahead and fold it up into a ball, put it back into the mixing bowl, and cover it up. Let's let that sit for 1 hour at room temperature. All right, so it's been about an hour. You can see our dough has risen quite a bit. It's a lot bigger already. Go ahead and give it a good punch. Get the air out of there. Let's take the dough out and flour our working surface so that this dough does not stick. We are going to be rolling this dough out into a big rectangle. And there aren't exact dimensions that you need to do. This is a very forgiving recipe. So make as big of a rectangle as you want. Once you have your rectangle set, take a knife or another sharp object. I'm using a table scraper here and cut strips into that rectangle. It does not have to be perfect. As you can see, mine are varying in size, and that's totally okay. If you want them to be very uniform, I would recommend using a ruler and measuring it out. But I'm going to move my strips to the top of my cutting board here so that I can make room for my baking sheet. Now that I have my baking sheet down, I'm going to take one of these strips. I'm going to put it in a knot. So to do that, you cross over the ends and then loop the ends through the hole. It does not have to be perfect. The dough is going to expand. It's pretty sticky dough, and once they bake, the loop you've done through the middle is going to hold pretty tight. We want these to proof for about 30 minutes. And there's a few ways you can do that. You can put them in your oven like I'm going to do with the oven turned off, or you can cover them if you have a way of doing that without smooshing them. Once the 30 minutes is close to up, go ahead and melt some butter with about 5 to 6 cloves of garlic in it. And preheat your oven to 390 degrees Fahrenheit. Once the butter's melted, either using a brush or a baster, coat the top of the dough with that garlic butter. Once you've got them all covered, Bake these at 390 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 to 20 minutes or until they're golden brown. These are out of the oven. They look absolutely gorgeous. While they were baking, I cleaned my brush because it was touching raw dough. And I'm going to brush or baste these again with that melted garlic butter. There's two ways you can do the next few steps. You can either put all of these into a big mixing bowl and add the toppings that way. Or if you're in a house like I am, where there are picky eaters that don't want certain things, you can just brush over the top while they're still on the cookie sheet like I'm doing here. And that way you can selectively leave some of the toppings off of some of the garlic knots. Sprinkle some flaky salt or coarse salt over the top of these once the butter's coated. Next, sprinkle some Parmesan cheese on there. These are still going to be pretty hot from the oven, so the cheese will melt a little bit. It'll be really nice. And lastly, sprinkle some parsley on there. As I mentioned earlier, I have some picky eaters in my house, so I'm going to leave parsley off of a couple of these. So there they are. These are really great with like a marinara sauce to dip them in, or just on their own, they're really good. So I hope you enjoy this recipe and hope you try it out. And let me know in the comments what you think and how it went for you. Thanks for watching.